Okay, very quickly, this roulette wheel has 5 categories that encompass my extracurricular dreams on it, and I will spin it so that I do not have to decide which of my many hobbies and interests to engage in. It's after work. I have an hour to do this, and I'm going to jump right in. Okay. Oh, shit. Please don't be one of the complicated ones. Fuck, I can't do that. Okay, we have to do it again. Sorry, guys. The reason I can't do that is because the painting setup is actually at home, so yeah. Okay. Okay, great. We can totally do that. Obsidian Cleanup. I will I will switch to a share screen, and I will just start cleaning up my obsidian. Maybe talking a bit, maybe not, but whatever. It's just like a vibe. It's like vibe coding without there being any coding, and maybe very little vibe as well. Let's go. So something very silly happened. I waxed Poetic for like half an hour, and I didn't have my audio capture on. So I'm gonna go back in, even though I did a lot of editing already, because I just want to, fuck, it's so sad. I said some really nice things, and I know this is just for myself, but, and I know that I would have heard myself and that it's somewhere there, but what I'm doing with this channel is I'm creating a journal, and I'm not expecting anyone to find it. I'm not expecting the algorithm to discover me, because it's all over the place, and I want to lean into that because that is a big part of, that is my root system. My root system is crazy. Like, I have roots shooting off everywhere, and there's mycelium in my roots, and we're all dancing and communicating, and oh my god, no, I can't. Sorry. There's a song called Communicating that is just like, oof, melty. But anyway, it's messy down there, but it's life. And I guess that, like, when I was talking, well, when my lips were moving and there was no talking and I deleted that recording, one of the things that became really, really important for me recently, so I'm inside of my Obsidian for a project called Cloud Embassy. And Cloud Embassy is still a name that I'm using for something, but I'm putting most of this content into another project called Interfacing, simply because Cloud Embassy is a name that is so dear to my heart, and it feels more like an arrival sometime outside of the kind of cultural experiments that I'm looking to do in this next chapter of my artistic work. Instead, it feels more like a place, a zone, a home, a sanctuary. And so my apartment is what I'm calling Cloud Embassy, and I am making my apartment into an artwork. And basically, like, not a sterile, white cube kind of, I hate you, get out of here gallery vibe, but more of a tea. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. A tea. Oh god, can I turn those off forever? Forever and ever and ever. Okay, gone. God, that was annoying. Yeah, a kind of sanctuary that is like a tea house where people can come over and everything is art. So the walls are basically paneled in canvas that is painted in a very transcendent way, with also studies of flowers, and then there's a room dedicated to more studies of tessellations and patterns, and then there's the more imagistic room, and then there's the hallway, where maybe there's like cell reception, but then the 2 rooms are Faraday cages. Yeah, I have ideas. I have dreams for that as well. Tatami mats on the floor, because I love sleeping on the floor and eating on the floor and existing on the floor. As a tall person, maybe other people can relate to that or not. But yeah, so Cloud Embassy is now my home, and Interfacing is the name of this art expression of the next part of my life. One idea that was very central to Cloud Embassy and is now yeah, simply going under another name is having a kind of book, which is like the hope for the book is it's autobiographical, but in a Mad Lib way. So it is all reference from my experience as a total outlier, finding orientation in this world. But then there's a lot of Mad Lib elements which kind of allow you to infuse yourself into that story. So it's like any good story where you can really relate to the main character, but it's even more of an active kind of less story, more interface, more, and I'm going to use that word a lot because that's the name of the project, interfacing. More of a, like an artifact, like a ritual object, a ritual artifact that requires participation for it to take on any meaning. And in doing so, it becomes the most meaningful thing because it's something that you co-create. Woo! I also hate that word co-create, but sometimes I slip up. Yeah, so I was reading through this in my other video, which no longer exists. But yeah, and some other things I said was like, oh yeah, no. The other important thing I want to say is for myself to hear for the second time now is that for my whole life, I've fought. So going back to my root system and how crazy it is, like I've fought against structures I've fought against structures in a way that kind of was premature for the momentum, or the lack of momentum that I had. So an example would be like, I was living barely off my art, off paintings for over a decade of my life. And I could never commit to the system of regular scheduled shows, of having a gallery sell everything to private customers, meaning that the paintings would just kind of, I'd make one and it would go off and there would never be this kind of harvesting of multiple venues and attention, which I kind of needed because I was so exhausted from having to make individual works over and over again that I really felt that I needed paintings to travel and kind of work for me as active agents, or at least have active agents as gallerists who could make those works travel farther than just from the gallery to someone's home. Now, I also know that I was very lucky to be commercially successful, but it felt like a dead end for me. It felt like something I couldn't sustain, and I didn't. I burned out, and you know, in general, across my whole life, I've had this kind of being at odds with the systems, wanting to subvert them, but not doing it in a very strategic way. And I think that that's one of the issues, is that strategy is kind of over evaluated. However, channeling things, being really specific about and being strategic about how to channel things, but not strategic on kind of the end result. It's more like in the moment. Okay. It's about, in the moment, does this feel like flow versus killing yourself for some future promise of success or arrival. And so the strategy exists in application in the moment, and you have your feedback in the moment if something is working or not. It's very, very tough to get there. I mean, I've failed constantly, but I feel that I'm actually at a point now with this roulette thing, no over-evaluation of it, understanding like kind of a bit of my own neurology, and I think also human neurology, or just human psychology, and biology, knowing that like decision fatigue, let's just take that as an example. It's not that I run out of energy at the end of the day, but my associations to being depleted of energy are associations with things like decision making. And I don't know how calculatable the actual energy is, like the input and output, but I know from my own patterns that decision making is highly associated with with exhaustion. And so like the old me would strategically be like, oh, I need to be smart about which extracurriculars I choose first to do with the time that I have. But I'm just not that person. Like, I have to do everything, and I want to do everything, and I'm not here to think about which ones are more important, because in my life there's been a lot of success in not thinking that through and bringing things together and experiencing this kind of synchronicity that happens between many, many, many different pursuits, and just having a multifaceted pursuit in general. And so the last like couple of years, I've kind of failed at doing anything, because on the one hand, I knew that there was no real priority, but on the other hand, I was still unable to supersede decision fatigue. Which brings me to this roulette function, which is such a simple thing, but it unlocks so much profound extra flow time in the day, because I've identified decision making as the thing, as the barrier, the insurmountable barrier between me and putting in an hour a day on some kind of extracurricular. And so, and knowing and releasing any sense of there being a real prioritization of those extracurriculars, I outsourced the decision to roulette, and then I just do it. And it's like, it's the best. It's changed everything. I had this dream last night. Oh my God. So I have a lot of plants that are like desert plants. They don't grow. I mean, they're alive, but they don't grow. Also because I'm in Berlin, and they're probably like, why am I here? It's so cold and dark. But in my dream last night, my desert plants were blossoming. One of them had this like feather flower protrusion that looked like the end of an arrow. It was almost jet black, but it had this kind of blue iridescent sheen to it. And I was so excited, I like called my dream mom over. I was like, Mommy, look at this flower. And that was also just so touching, because my mom and I have our differences, but I know like deep down inside, her soul is one of the most pure souls in this planet. And there's just a lot of layers of trauma and like stuff on top. And I wouldn't call out to anyone except for my mom to show flowers, because she would totally just be really, really excited. Like, she would just be really genuinely excited. She's not jaded. And so many people are jaded, and I think that's so sad. It makes me very sad. So yeah, there was this flower thing, and then there was another one which was blossoming before my eyes, and it was going so, it was like, it went from bud to blossom in a span of 30 seconds. And the blossom was this kind of firework of red with all these little dangling things coming out. And I was like, this is so crazy. And I just feel that dream was a direct representation of this feeling of touching again all of my joy my joy and curiosity about the world through making things, through learning things, through also going back through my own work and recognizing the jewels and gems that I've left kind of scattered around all the place. And it's like a harvest. I feel like I'm harvesting the fruits of my labor, and I'm planting new seeds. And it's like this dream and this feeling, I just woke up so giddy from it. And that's why I'm doing this video now, because it's not technically the end of my workday, but I want to keep this cadence going for at least 100 days. And because I know that will be enough time to really transform and sense this as a necessary part of how I live the rest of my life. Yeah. Well, I was just monologuing. What else would I want to say? So yeah, oh right, okay, so the channel separation. So yeah, messy roots. Like, imagine organizing a plant's roots. Like, that's death. That's the death of the plant. I mean, it's bonsai if you're a master, but even bonsais, a lot of them die, and then they're still like weak and they can't exist on their own. I don't want to be a weak bonsai. I do want to be beautiful, but I think nature in its own space is beautiful. Yeah. So this YouTube channel is kind of like my root system. It's completely unedited. I'm not going to put any kind of the labor into it that would take this away from being a purely generative creative space where it's just nutrients and growth. Growth, internal growth, not, viewership growth, which I think is going to be negative, if anything at all. And this feels like a real clarity that I've never had before, of clarity of channels, that like I feel so motivated to show up for this because YouTube is the perfect mix of the potential of witness and also the practical ability to upload large file sizes, add keywords, organize them, have like, you know, curate your playlist, curate your kind of channel. But I don't need anyone to watch. That's not the point. And therefore, I'm not fighting against the algorithm because I don't care if the algorithm can pick up or not pick up, discern or not discern my ideal audience. It would be really cool if people did find it, but that's not what I'm doing this for. And that's a very subtle but profound difference between wanting something but not, you know, not making something that, whatever that thing, wanting something like wanting success on YouTube or wanting viewership or engagement, but only making content that's never going to work. That to me is this kind of rift, this stress, this restrictiveness, which is going to cause burnout. And you are not feeling the success in the moment. You're thinking, oh, like I'll get there by just pushing up more content. I'll change the system. I think ultimately I am a system breaker. I do want to change the system, but when I break down these larger picture dreams into things much more, you know, they're still connected, but they're kind of parsed out. Then I can really, where the strategy comes in is really just checking in. Am I fighting myself here, or am I flowing with myself here? And am I fighting the system, or am I flowing with the system? And within certain delineations, there can be harmony, even if the larger system is kind of broken. And that goes both ways, speaking of me as a system or something like YouTube as a system, or any social media platform or any distribution platform for that matter. Where things change is, so now I'm thinking about interfacing in the channel that I'm making for that project. And the project is also not, if the project taken as a whole is not algorithmic, because I don't know what the project is as a whole. And instead of fighting my natural magic, which is being enigmatic, being mysterious, having things change as I make them, instead of fighting that and trying to prescribe it and call it something, which I would be very unhappy about calling it, like a brand, which I'm never going to do, I can actually come back to where I am with that project, the very, very, very specific starting point. And that in of itself is actually so specific through very specific physical gesturing. Like I'm basically rewilding ad spaces. So I'm guerrilla style, like turning billboards into gardens. And that as a gesture is totally set up for social media. Like it's perfect. And therefore interfacing is that for as long as it is that. And I am really excited to start that channel and experiment with actually working with the algorithm to distribute a very specific gesture that's loaded with, I think, emotional and cultural impact. So let's see, but that for me has been a big evolution of like, break things down, don't fight, find, use strategy to find flow. Don't think beyond, don't abstract it out and try and strategize your life or strategize world domination or changing the paradigm. Knowing that changing the paradigm is my MO, that it's in there, trusting that it will come through. The most important thing is movement and momentum and kind of getting somewhere so that then the larger gestures that are a bit challenging can be done with proper resources and proper support and proper platforming. Because it is true that a lot of people try and fight the system without having any power or leverage, and they end up just getting defeated. The system breaks them rather than them breaking the system. Okay, well, I know probably a lot of this doesn't really make sense because it came from nowhere, but I am going to end the video now. I said, or I repeated the things that I really wanted to, and yeah, I'm just so grateful that things are clicking in for me. As someone who's on many spectrums, like it's not the easiest to navigate this world and navigate and orient myself in it, but I really do feel that it's starting to click in. So yeah, thanks for witnessing this, and I'll be back tomorrow.